Folk magic, Wicker Man, sun worship, the light of Lucifer. I'm going to be comparing two films because I saw both Wicker Man and Midsommar recently. And yes, that is the voice of the Swedish chef, the secret leader of the Swedish cult. Let's talk about the 1973 Wicker Man. In the beginning of the film, we see the Christian character, the bumbling cop, taking communion. This, I think, foreshadows what happens later in the film. He's going to be a sacrifice, a foolish sacrifice. And in fact, if we think about Fraser's golden bow, then we'll know that this is a implementation of the king kill ritual. It is, in fact, the Christian who becomes the sacrifice in this film. As he moves to the island in search of the missing girl, Rowan, we see curious pre-signifiers such as human cakes, something we've seen before with Will Ferrell and Lady Gaga, and Marinka Abramovich. The doctrine we learn of the cult at the island is the transmigration of souls, panpsychism, or reincarnation. They do not believe in any kind of resurrection, and in fact, they specifically laugh at the notion. Of course, all pagan mystery religions worship the cycles of nature, whether it's the rites of Demeter, the return of nature to its Orphic state of death. All of these mysteries, the return to the underworld and then back to the overworld, the cycle of the harvest, are a deification and personification of natural and generative forces. Thus, in the film, the sacrifice for Aphrodite becomes a ritual offering that is intended to give back to the mother goddess the energies that she's given forth. Thus, nature is God. This is why we see the maypole being worshipped in the maypole ceremony, where the kids all dance around and they say this weird chant song. And on this man there was a thing, and on this thing there was a bunion, and on this bunion there was some funk, and on this funk there was some organisms, and on these organisms there was some crazy shit, and on and on and on. It's because they worship the generative principle. Everything is about the sexual process. If we think about Plato's esoteric writing, the Timaeus, this is the egg and the snake, and these actually are referenced in the film. This is, of course, the phallic and female offering in terms of reproduction. Egg and snake. Yo, girl, I got a snake, you got an egg. The tree of life is also symbolized by the maypole. And so once again, we see reincarnation present as the principle of life and decay goes back into the earth. Death becomes a natural process. And this reincarnation process is set over against the idea of resurrection. In fact, Christopher Lee even gives a pagan version of virgin birth when he talks about parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis. They dance above the fire to be impregnated. Speaking of the chicks jumping over fire. Thus, the policeman character who represents the king, he comes in the regalia and symbolism of the king. He represents the fool. He represents the virgin fool who is to be the white rabbit sacrifice. So everything that he thinks is about someone else, that he's going to rescue them, is actually about him. Thus we see the six-pointed star come up in the scene with the swords over the head of Christopher Lee, representing Kronos, representing Saturn. Set, or Saturn. Kronos devouring and thus requiring human sacrifice. Kronos being time. And in history, Kronos was worshipped with human sacrifice. We see the animal masks as representations of the lower, baser passions as, quote, natural, and that all of this phenomena is just a natural process. We see the bread man and John Barleycorn as also personifications of nature. And we also even see something animistic, recalling paganism, recalling something even almost voodoo with the hand of glory. This is a curse and part of the means by which they delude and fool the policeman. We also see the confusion of nature here, and we see the return to primitive chaos and regeneration as a means by which man can re-spark the Big Bang. Hint, hint, Big Bang. Confusion rites were known to many ancient cultures, including Greek paganism. Thus, the king-kill ritual is, in fact, the culmination of the Burning Man cyclical return to earth, regeneration, phoenix from the ashes symbolism. It's a human sacrifice. Unless you think that this is something confined to the pagan world of the past, remember that in my book, Analysis of Ghosts in the Machine by Arthur Koestler, he says that these are nothing but natural phenomena. Human sacrifice in ancient paganism was just a natural phenomenon. We see solar symbolism, mask symbolism, that is the Apollo symbolism. We also see Demeter, we also see Diana, mother goddess type symbolism in the film. And what this signifies is that both the male and the female principles are personifications of nature that have to be placated. And in the universal belief system of paganism, this is placated through human sacrifice. So Wicker Man is a wick, is a form of a witch. Wicker Man is a real presentation, you could say, of the actual pagan worldview. And who's behind it all? Who's the green man? Well, it's Pan himself. Pan, the goat god. Pan is the devil. So now that if you've seen Wicker Man, you know what I'm talking about. Let's compare this to Midsommar. Now, when we come to Midsommar, the new film by Ari Aster, we must keep in mind that Aster is who did Hereditary, the creepy ritual magic movie based on Solomon's Key with this beautiful young child in it who loses her head. Hereditary is pretty gross. However, what Hereditary and Midsommar show us is that we are witnessing the rise of open, ceremonial, occult, dark, voodoo, black, magic, craziness, juju, muju, mujumbo gumbo on the rise everywhere. Now the film begins with a very dark winter scene of death and destruction, symbolized by all the snow, by the cold, and the apparent suicide of a girl and her family. She has piped in 2 pipes worth of carbon monoxide from 2 cars in the garage, and as a result, her sister, who survives this ordeal, who is trying to contact her bipolar sister through email or whatever, Facebook, ends up traumatized, obviously. So she's lost her whole family. She is now alone, except for her kind of D-bag boyfriend. And her D-bag boyfriend is a literal combination between Seth Rogen and Chris Pratt. We'll call him Pris Rogen. Or Chris Pratt. Seth Pratt. Pris. I like Pris. Anyway, we notice the symbolism that in her house, even when she's upset laying on the bed, we see the Goldilocks and the bear. So she's going to kind of represent Goldilocks in this film. Now, the film is very, very similar to Wicker Man. I don't think it's as good as Wicker Man. It borrows so much from Wicker Man. It basically just changes the window dressing. But it has a lot of the same symbolism, and a lot of people have missed the dark Lucifer type imagery and terminology that was dropped in the film. Now, it does revolve around human sacrifice, and this is important because it's almost like this is making a comeback. They want to bring this back. So we see the sister who's bipolar. This is, I think, meant to contrast the inability of the modern Western world to cope with our lifestyle, right? And this is set over against the supposed noble savage lifestyle of those in the commune, in the cult. Now, the Midsommar rituals, the solstice and whatnot, are supposed to be based on European Swedish folk tradition. So once again, folk magic is in the picture, but it's hard to tell. There's actually a scene with a book on the table, and the book actually says the secret Nazi language of the Utmark, which is discussing runes. So we have the idea here of a cult commune hidden away in the woods, and when the boyfriend and the girl decide that they're going to make this trek, they originally don't want her to go there, but the Swedish guy, whose commune it actually is, these grad students, he seems to have organized this to bring her to the commune. It's almost like what he's looking for is a wife. He needs a queen, a May Queen, to be his, and he's selected her. And so when they get to the Hälsingland area of Sweden, we realize the names of these characters are immediately significant. There's Christian, the Chris Pratt douchebag boyfriend, Joshua, Mark, all biblical names. And this family is a close-knit commune, the family, right? And everybody else are outsiders. Immediately, what do? They do drugs. They do initiatory ritual of hallucinogens and shrooms, which puts our main blonde chick character into a altered state. Now, we know that from MKUltra, the CIA programs, they really did study all these groups to do this. So there is an initiatory aspect to this. There is a reference to the CIA, mind control, MKUltra, Monarch, Bluebird projects. And immediately what happens is she's distraught by the fact that, well, she and all the students really are distraught by the fact that they're at a time period when the sun is blue, full sky, all night. They call it the midnight sun or the black sun. This is a reference to the time of Lucifer. Nature worship here, and it is exemplified by the fact that when she starts to have her trip, she sees her feet turn into grassy, hairy hobbit troll feet. She grows grass on her feet. She's becoming one with nature. And immediately when she starts to think about her sister, she is triggered. People say family, 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 and this actually triggers her. She starts going into her wavy, bug-eyed trip states. So Danny, this main character, sees her dead sister, and so immediately she's already having this initiatory contact with the occult. It's going to get crazier and crazier. She starts to lose time. She thinks that, and she basically, it's almost as if she enters into another state of being, an alternate realm. The cult has a giant sun image, and so we know that they're worshiping the sun. Who's the sun? It is Lucifer. Note as well that the runes and their symbolisms look very similar to the Veva, the same types of symbols and runes that we see in voodoo. Next, we find out that the initiatory rites that these people are unknowingly being brought through are a 9-day fast with 9 tables, 9 individuals who are going to be sacrificed, and this happens every 90 years. 999 is, of course, another version of 666. The cult is interested in doing Tai Chi, which is curious because that's kind of an Eastern technique. But notice that this is also found in influence from Crowley. This cult actually has a very Crowleyan aspect to it. We learned that they're going to skin the fool. This is part of the ritual. And the pyramid at the middle of this whole complex here, which we think is initially for growing beans or some shit, it's actually about burning everybody up. It's a giant Wicker Man, even though it's a giant sun pyramid. We figure out through the iconic symbolism and art of the village, which, by the way, tells us everything. What a bunch of dum-dums, grad students who can't figure out with giant cartoons drawn in every single building, all over the walls, all over the blankets, that they're about to be sacrificed. Right? That Danny, the main girl, is the Goldilocks character. The boyfriend is the bear, and the bear is going to be burnt up. He's even shown burnt up, and he still can't figure it out. These people just can't get a clue, even when every red flag is present around them, just like the Christian policeman character in Wicker Man. So we see then a love spell where certain hairs are put inside a chicken pot pie and other fluids. And this puts our Chris Pratt character into a bit of a love spell tizzy. Again, nobody has any discernment here. All their friends are dying all around them, and they can't figure out what's going on. They also chant weird things that sound like the name of God. Sounds like Shem Ham Faresh or some occultic gobbledygook version. I'm talking about the cult. We see them bashing older people over the heads with a Thor hammer, and that's because you're supposed to give up your life when you're 72 and you go back into the earth, just like we saw in Wicker Man. They then smear the blood on the rune to placate the deities. So it is, in effect, a kind of a suicide cult, but it's really just a worship of the life cycle of nature, i.e. being recycled into death. So they practice euthanasia. They practice burning of the dead, cremation. One of the most interesting scenes is when she is in the dance. She spins around and around and around. She's drugged. And again, it reminds me of the Conan snake cult, especially this part, right, where James Earl Jones, when he's confronted with Arnold, and he asks Arnold, who do you worship? And Arnold talks about worshiping Crom! I worship Crom! Which is interesting because Crom was actually a deity who also required human sacrifice. And then we see that James Earl Jones's character, head of the snake cult, come, my child, come to me, my precious, come to me, my child. And she jumps down and commits suicide. Both snake cults. Well, it's very similar to here. She sees the black one, even though not directly, but they're told that when she's dancing, the black one will come forth and choose who is the May Queen. This is all her initiation ritual. She has the license of Pan, right? The whole cult does during this period to hump and do what you want. Not only that, the grannies help out. And I'm not going to say any more than that. Really gross. I'm not recommending this movie. But there's a little extra pushing going on from behind when Chris Pratt is chosen to do his masculine duties. This is all by design, of course, and Chris Pratt, we learn, spoiler alert, is going to be the burnt up bear. He is called the Beast. So to the Luciferian pagan mindset, Christianity is the beast. Everything is inverted and reversed. She sees herself once again as grass and nature. She starts having things grow out of her when she's tripping balls. The black one has chosen her in the dance to be the May Queen. She becomes the May Queen, and she's told that all is Maya and illusion. Once again, we see a kind of Eastern influence. She's an astrological match for the original guy who brought all this about, the grad student from Sweden, who organized all this to bring her there. And what's weird in this is that she gets a reverse gift of tongues. She actually gets a kind of dark Pentecost, where when she's spinning around in this ritual, spinning and spinning and spinning, this kind of whirling dervish, she suddenly understands their language. And she becomes the May Queen. She is the embodiment of the goddess. She's in the family now. Think here of the Manson cult. It's a family right sex magic cult. So then 9 lives are given to the goddess and to the sun, just like in Wicker Man. And as a result, they believe that they have done their duties. The lusty Christian bear is burned because he's trapped by his lusts, and he's called the beast. The 3 creepy faceless characters seem to exemplify the 3 fates, and they burn the 9 up in a giant pyramid, a giant sun pyramid, Lucifer's sun pyramid. So notice, it doesn't really matter whether it's satanic, occult, pagan, Luciferian. It's all exemplified here. Cremation, I think, is an acceptance of this type of view. This is why we don't cremate. It's a giant burnt offering to the sun god, who is Apollo and Lucifer. And this Lucifer in the film, if you pay attention, is actually called the Black Sun. If you like this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up, share the video, give me some comments and thoughts below. Tell me what you think. If you noticed any other symbolism in the film, let me know. And also share this, and if you want more, go to jaysanalysis.com and you can purchase my books, Esoteric Hollywood 1 and 2, about symbolism in film. Signed copies at my website, $30 inside the US, $60 out of the US. And you can also sign up for the archives at Jay's Analysis. 2, 3, 4 years worth of material. Thank you.